Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming back. This is Charlie Pankey here now podcast, and we are excited to have you here this week. Sierra Rec, if you don't know, our home base is in Nevada, so we're right outside of Lake Tahoe. We're in the Carson Valley. We love living in Nevada, and I have a funny story to share with you today. Actually, one of the places my wife said she'd never live is the state of Nevada. And when we broke it down and we moved here, the reason was because she always thought it was Vegas, that Nevada was Vegas. Well, that is one of those mysteries in life that we're going to try to debunk a little bit today, because the Nevada I know is a big old desert basin with massive mountains everywhere you look at. We got wild Mustangs roaming the plains, and night skies around here are second to none. And I love living in Nevada. It is my home base to the Sierra, and I go play the Sierra all the time. But my guest today is going to help us debunk some of the mystery of Nevada. She spent 20 years photography, traveling the state and telling stories about the culture, the history, and the landscapes. And she's got a brand new book out we want to introduce you called Nevada Wild. It's something that she's been working on for about a couple decades, and it just is on the bookshelves this month. So kind of give you your first preview of it here at the show. So stick around today. My guest, Sydney Martinez. Sydney, I forgot to ask you where you're even from. I don't even know home base is. I apologize for that. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited to chat with you about the project Finding Nevada Wild and just being outside.
Yeah, outside. That's my favorite place to be, is outside, right? You've been working on this book, and thank you for sending it to me to review and stuff. But you've been working on this book for a little while now. Maybe we just start there. Let's talk about what CL Wild is, from its core, and then what gave you the idea to write this type of manual or book.
Yeah. So my husband and I have spent a lot of time getting off the grid and away from people,
Okay.
chasing darkness and quietness and
Yeah.
hot springs and fishing and hiking. And, really what drove so much of this project is Nevada gets beat up a lot. There's all of our Western states are so coveted for their landscapes and their premier world renowned recreation, except Nevada, because exactly as you've described, people think that it's Las Vegas, the place the government decided to blow up in the
But
1950s.
yeah.
The Nevada test site. Some people know Lake Tahoe and Reno, but people think Lake Tahoe's in California, so that doesn't even really count most of the time.
Yep.
And other than that, it's just this big, empty, barren wasteland. And some of these experiences that my husband, Johnny, and I have had out there are right up there with some of the best, amazing Western landscapes that people think of. You just have to look a little bit closer and try a little bit harder. And it's out there, and that's really
It,
what the book is about, is this quest of finding these amazing places on your own.
So your quest was similar to us starting Sierra Rec magazine. You were like, I moved here, fell in love with the mountains, started sharing photos and stories of my hikes, and people go, "Where's that at?" And I realized how many people have lived there their entire life and didn't know this lake was 20 miles away. Or I went to Mammoth one time, and a gentleman in line been there for a whole week and didn't know that Yosemite was 15 miles up the road, because he was thinking Yosemite Valley, had no idea that Tioga Pass was right up the road. He gives them the high country. So those hidden
Exactly.
gems, right? Yeah.
Yeah, well, in the cover of the book, we shot this at Thousand Creek Gorge, which is up in Nevada's northwestern corner. And
Yeah.
I mean, this right here explains so much of the book, because we had been up there looking for hot springs and we were rock hounding looking for blackfire opals, and we saw this massive entrance to a canyon. And in Nevada, it's one of the few places that you can wonder what's over down that road and then actually legally go there and figure it out, because it's
Exactly.
the largest percentage of public lands in the country.
Hmm.
And so we rode over there in the truck and went up to the edge of this canyon. And I don't know if you can see, but I mean, we were standing on the edge of 1,000-foot cliff, and
Wow.
we kept hearing this sound. Like, what is that sound? And they were birds' wings riding the thermals in the canyon below us. So we just couldn't see it. We're like, and it's just as amazing an experience as, many people would have in Yosemite Valley, right
Yep.
here in the middle of Nevada and nobody else around, and that
Uh,
really sums it up.
yeah.
When do you stand on the edge of 1,000-foot cliff with nobody else around? This is pretty cool. And the book is filled with so many more experiences like that,
Well, let's start right there in that corner, okay? Because a fun little fact that I happen to know about that corner too. Now, not that canyon. I don't know where that canyon's at,
yeah,
but the northwest corner of Nevada is considered some of the darkest skies in the world.
it's
It
correct.
literally no light up there. It's vacant of light besides starlight. And if you go out on some of those desert roads up in the northwest corner up there, you can get out where there's almost zero light pollution and see stars that you've never seen before. And few people, like I said, few people do it because if you're not used to traveling BLM roads and being out in the desert by yourself at nighttime, there is a little bit of spookiness to it, and you got to get your big boy britches on your first time out there and kind of go, okay, there's snakes out here, and there's coyotes running around, and there's whatever else in the darkness, but there is this wild factor of being out there at nighttime, which is pretty cool, right?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I've got a funny story for you. So my husband and I went up to that place. It's called Massacre Rim, and that's also in
Yep.
the book.
Okay.
And we had gone up there and we're looking around because it had just recently been designated some of the darkest skies in the world. And it's
Yep.
so dark up there that on a moonless night, stars can actually cast a shadow. And scientists were able to discover entire new parts of the Milky Way galaxy that had never been seen before because it's just so remote, so far
Yep.
away from people. And so we did what we do. We packed up the truck, we had extra fuel, we've been out a million times, we know how to prepare for this. And we had been fooled into thinking that there was like an actual geographic rim, as the name suggests, Massacre Rim. We were like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
it
yeah.
must be like a plateau or something. And we just kept driving around and driving around. And normally, when we go camping, we want to set up next to like a creek or a tree or a hot spring or something, and we were getting kind of mad. And my husband was like, these stars better be dark. Like we have to turn around or we're going to run out of even our spare gas. Like we were mad because we hadn't found it. And so we pulled up onto this lake bed, which we later found out was Massacre Lake, the place we were supposed to be. And the moon dropped, I guess it was late. It was the middle of summer around 10 p.m. And all of a sudden the Milky Way comes up and we're like, oh my God. And this is that picture from that night that we were up there. I mean, you can really see the Milky Way.
Yeah.
On full
unfortunately, the resolution on the computer cameras aren't going to do that justice, but yeah, you imagine how the oranges and the greens that you probably could see in the Milky Way that you get with great photography because people know how to do Lightroom stuff, but you're just seeing that with your naked eye, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we shot that with a professional camera, my Canon. But it was, we saw that come up and my husband was like, okay, yeah, we did it. This counts.
We're different.
So we were amazed. But yeah, up in that part of the state, there's some incredible stargazing. You just have to be prepared to, run into an emergency or, travel with a paper map, tell somebody where you're going and when you're coming back. There's a lot of opportunities to blow a tire or two up in that part of the state. So as long as you're prepared and bring extra gas and have maps and don't rely on cell phones and know where you're going, we love it up there. That's truly like there's amazing opal mining, dark skies, antelope, hot springs. I mean, it's like all the best. All of our favorite experiences are up in that part of the state. So
all right, so I have a hot spring question for you, okay? Because I've lived here 18 years.
Yeah.
And I am the worst hot spring locator person in the world, I think, because I think I found one hot spring randomly once in 18 years, right? And people talk about they talk about these hot springs all the time, and I'm going, they're just not that easy to find. What's like the secret of looking at a map and going, there's a hot spring here, I think?
Well, rule number one of looking for hot springs is don't ask anybody where the hot springs are.
That's my problem. I'll guarantee that.
I'm just kidding. No, there's a bunch of them that are on public lands. And, that's really where I first fell in love with this state there's, I think, more than 400 natural sources. So it's the most geothermally active state in the country. Yeah. And we just kind of became obsessed with this, going out and finding all these places. And, we'd hear about it, or sometimes hot springs are so secret, you won't even see a picture of them online. And really, that's what I'm proud of with this book, is that there's no geo coordinates, there's no directions in here. And it really is that quest of, I'll tell you the names of some of these places, but you have to go find them on your own. And then as many as are in here, there's just as many that are not. So I hope I've served Nevadans well. There's a lot of amazing places out there, but the last thing I want to do with this project is, blow secrets or wreck any places that are already under fragile land management systems. But
Yeah.
some easy ones to answer your question: Spencer Hot Springs, that's right outside of Austin. That's an
Yeah.
entry level one that's right off the highway. It's
There you go.
always the perfect temperature because you can move the source tube in and out of the tub. And then you're in the Big Smoky Valley, which is just like this incredible place right at the foot of the Toyabis. You can see just these incredible mountains, some of the tallest peaks in the state. And there's something about the sunsets in that valley that are just incredible. So that's a good place to start if you're new to the hot springs world.
I like it. I like it. There is a nice little hot spring here in Carson Valley, right on the border, on the river. That's quite nice. A lot of people know how to here locally how to get to. That I had to take a raft in to find it because I still couldn't figure out the road. So the raft took me right to it. That's all I needed.
And we went there. I mean, I think that road is really designed for like a side by side, but of course we went there in our Tacoma. And as you might imagine, roads don't usually get better like that over time. Last time we went, it was like, oh my God, we're going to have to get some kind of different vehicle in here. It took us a while to get in, but that's a good one. I know which one.
There's a little bit of that going on, definitely. So you just said something else that's one of my favorite things in Nevada. So I'll just jump you there real quick. A lot of people don't know that we are one of the most mountainous states in the United States. Second to only Alaska, I think, for 14ers in the country, actually. So as popularity of 14ers have become a big thing in the last maybe 10 years or 8 years of people that doing, I assume that tourism in Nevada has probably increased a little bit, but still a lot of people don't come to Nevada. And I'm not a 14er, so I'm not even going to go down that road too much. But what I think they're missing, and we can talk about, is the skies here in Nevada are incredible.
Oh my God.
I've never lived any place in my life where the cloud formations, the wind, the just pure openness, the night skies, the stars pop out. I just wondered if maybe you could share something in your book. You talk about mountains, you talk about the wide open spaces. Maybe there's a story or a place that you go, there's this place you've got it, like that valley, that ridge that people would want to know about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, one of our most memorable experiences was through hiking the Ruby Crest Trail. We did that during the pandemic. And that is out near Elko. And it's a glacial carved canyon. So even if you can't make it up the mountain, there's a 12-mile scenic byway that goes right through it. That is just stunning. And a place that you would never again suspect is in Nevada. And many native Nevadans are, they see the pictures I have and they're like, that's not Nevada. You're like, yes, it is. There's a lot of high alpine around here. So the Ruby Mountains are amazing. The Ruby Crest National Recreation Trail is 43 miles long. And we hiked the whole thing in 2020. And I think we saw 5 people on the trail. Nice. And so, one person we saw was like, oh man, I wanted to hike the Pacific Crest Trail. And I think there was a fire at the time in California. And she said that she had tried to hike some of it and it still was just like so crowded. And, we're so spoiled because we're used to going to these places and being completely alone. And that is fortunately the experience we had, that was 5 years ago. So I imagine it might be a little bit more popular now, but that was just incredible. I mean, the alpine lakes up in there are just like a bunch of little mini Lake Tahoes, just, Caribbean-esque color,
exactly,
blue water. We fished all day at this lake called Overland Lake. And my husband, I think there was a fish on every single cast. Here, I'll show you this picture. This was like about his happiest day up there. I mean, the mountains are just incredible. It's insane. So we detailed the whole hike in the book from when we had hiked that, kind of how we decided to break it up. There is one stretch that there's not a lot of water and you're really exposed on the ridge. So I think we summited at least 5 peaks that day. And I think it was around 13 miles. So it was a haul, but man, like I said, we were every single night the only ones at these like official stops, like had these lakes all to ourselves. I mean, you're way the hell out there, but it sure is gorgeous and worth it, in my opinion, to get
that's great.
Have those experiences all to yourself. So
that's beautiful. I think that's one of the things that attracts me to your book when you're going through is like, you're so right. I mean, I go my piece of home base here in Carson Valley, we have BLM land out our back door. We got hundreds of miles of BLM road. And when I first started exploring the Sierra, that's where I went first, was BLM land. That's how I grew up, right? Just drive out a road and I could go, 7 miles out of dirt road to a rim, and I wouldn't see anybody all day long. I mean,
Exactly.
I like walking through sagebrush and the pine nuts, and it's a lot of fun to be out there. But I went out there to be alone and to my own thoughts, or whatever. And that's what I think Nevada's special point is, right? You can pull off the road, between Carson Valley and Bridgeport on the back. I think it's 231 or back there. Go back that road, the back road to Hawthorne. There's some ghost towns back there, and they have great fishing back there. There's great hiking back there. But you can go on a dirt road for 400 yards, park your car, and you won't see another car today. I mean,
100%.
it's literally just you. I mean,
Well,
it's just
and that's, I think too, like just so much of what drove the book, besides just Nevada constantly just getting dogged on by people
yeah,
who really don't take the time to figure it out.
yeah,
Um, I think that we also became addicted to this quest of knowing that there's something out there that you can't see right away. So
yeah,
you look down this valley and think, oh, there's nothing there. And it's like, well, we know that there's a hot spring down there and there's a great bar at the end of the road and there's some
yeah,
amazing fishing. And, we kind of started to figure this out and realize that every valley is that way. And so just sort of like just bumming around in the desert and making sure that we're safe and just seeing where the road can go. I mean, we're living in the last frontier in a lot of ways like that with the public lands. You'll hit a gate or a locked fence or something in another place, but you know, in Nevada, you can pretty much do whatever you want, wherever you want to, as long as it's not breaking the law. So
yeah. Some people may have a gun, but yeah. Wait, follow their signs. Uh, hey, so let's talk. Let's take a break real quick and turn towards culture and history a little bit, because I was a little fascinated there, because I'm not the biggest historian buff, but I know, for example, for our listeners and readers who are used to the Sierra, Nevada's history and California history intertwines in such fascinating ways sometimes. Everything from people used to come from California to come to Genoa so they can get divorces, for example, to escape convicts from Carson Valley that end up at Convict Lake in a shootout, and it's still his historic route, right? There's this interesting thing. Talk to me a little bit about the cultures that you found in Nevada that you think are fascinating, maybe people wouldn't know about, and maybe some of the history that you discovered as you're doing this book. Going, did you know that? I think that people would really like that.
yeah, well, I think that Nevada's besides our amazing indigenous histories here, I think that the two strongest cultural identities that are still alive in Nevada today are the Basques, the Basque history, and then the Buckaroos. And you can really feel that up in the northeastern part of the state in Elko County. I think, if I'm not wrong, the third largest current population of Basque Americans still live in Nevada. And that is also one of the things that drove this book, is that you can learn so much more about the cultural identities of Nevada being out there in it specifically, the indigenous histories and also the Basques and the Buckaroos, by just being out there in it than you ever could from a museum, or behind a glass display case. And you can really experience those like awe-filled moments in the wilderness areas with arbor glyphs. If you've been
Mm-hmm.
up to the Jarbidge Wilderness area, some of the most incredible, I mean, just like miles and miles of groves of aspens from Basque sheep herders.
Yeah.
And anyone that's listening that's not familiar with an arbor glyph, that would be from Basque sheep herders who were often single men that came to America mainly to be miners who immigrated from the French Spanish Pyrenees, came to the American West, turned to what they knew instead, which was sheep herding. And a lot of times they would base out of like Winnemucca, Gardnerville, Elko, and then they would go disappear in the mountains for months tending to these flocks of sheep.
Yep.
And it was a really lonely lifestyle. Most of the time these guys were alone with their sheep. And so they would carve these arbor glyphs in the trees. And some of them are just like, they're so ornate. We saw some really cool ones on the Ruby Crest, of course, up in Jarbidge. And then at the foot of Nevada's fourth tallest peak, which is Mount Jefferson, there are tons of really cool arbor glyphs as you hike up those mountains. So that has been so fun to learn the histories there. And then, of course, you go, into those anchor towns, and there's the Basque boarding houses like
Mm-hmm.
the Martin in Winnemucca, and the Star in Elko, and JT Basque in Gardnerville, Louis
Yeah.
Basque
Yeah.
Corner in Reno. And
Yep.
that's also a fun, like, I don't know if you're like me, but whenever either before you're leaving or when you're coming back, it's fun to celebrate at places like that with a pecan punch and a steak. And it's like a good reward of like being off the mountain. So
Yep. I
definitely,
love taking guests to the JT because it's such a unique experience. You have to kind of go experience a Basque restaurant at some place like the JT, which has kind of
yes.
done it right. It's locally known, but there's nothing like eating a Basque family style. It's pretty cool. So
Yeah, that's an amazing cultural
yeah,
experience. And then also
yeah.
up in that part of the state too, there's all kinds of amazing, some of the biggest ranches, hundreds of thousands of acres. And so yeah, I
Well,
hope that people experience
I'll
those things by being outside. So
I'll tie this into the Sierra here a little bit for our listeners. Yeah, many of the canyons that as you hike, especially like in Yosemite or the Eastern Sierra, many of those canyons are named for the sheep herder that would have their herd of sheep up there. They would claim these canyons. I'm not gonna say Lyell Canyon, although I think Lyell Canyon is one of them. There's several canyons that you go Matterhorn. Those are named after the sheep herders that had their sheep up there for the summertime. So this whole Basque community of sheep herders was Eastern Sierra Ridge, probably Mid Sierras, all the way through Nevada. Pretty big culture, even up into Boise, Idaho, where I grew up. They have the annual Bass Festival up there. That whole Great Basin region, it was a pretty popular Basque, culture. So it again ties in. It's one of the reasons we have the show going on today. I know we're Sierra focused, but Nevada's history and culture just it intertwines so great.
yeah, well, the whole region,
As
and
two
honestly,
states, right?
anybody who's interested in recreating the Sierra and the Eastern Sierra, I would really encourage you to go the other direction just for a change of pace, because lots of people think that, oh, it's too dry or it's too desolate or it's too long of a drive. But it's like, man, if you're looking for somewhere to go where there aren't a lot of people and,
Yeah.
and try it. Just try Nevada. You
Well,
might be surprised at how similar it is.
you said something a few minutes ago that's what I think people need to clue in. I said, Nevada's free basically.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of rules. You can just drive out in the desert, pull off on a wide spot on a hill, and claim your camp spot for the night. I mean, BLM is got a lot of flexibility, a lot of off-road dispersed camping opportunities. Guys that just disappear for 3-4 days. I know a gentleman here in town. Matter of fact, he knows a motorbike route from here in the Carson Valley all the way to Las Vegas. He crosses one road.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
says
There's a lot of
you can
off-roaders.
take a motorbike and just go. It's like no way.
Laughlin, so at the very southern end of Nevada, all the way up to Jarbidge, and they just ride and ride and ride.
All day
I
long,
think
right?
too, one of the things that, like I said, we get so spoiled being alone. But man, my husband, so he grew up as an Eagle Scout and was from
Oh,
the Bay Area, and he
okay.
hiked the entire John Muir Trail at 15. I mean, they were out there all the time, and so
Okay.
I think that to relate this to maybe some of your listeners, those are such amazing places. But like we've been saying, if the Ruby Mountains, you should try it. The Toyabe Crest Trail, that's 73-mile through hike. You probably won't see more than a dozen people the entire time. And there's been some amazing trail building crews, especially out of the Kingston area. And I just think that if people would look more to the east, and go check out the desert, I think that they would just be really amazed. And along the way, you'll find a piece of Nevada wild that you might keep turning back to. But really, also what this book is about is you might meet a version of yourself that you haven't met
Hmm.
before.
Right.
Sometimes we've had some low lows and high highs out there, and you really find out, about who you are and who your community is when you're out there.
Real
It's
fast. It's good to tell your community where you're going out there. Actually,
yeah.
most definitely. I've rescued 4x4 trucks up in the sands of behind the Pine Nut Mountains up here. They get up there into the sand, and all of a sudden their 4x4 starts to sink. It's like, oh yeah, those roads are serious business up there. Better
Everybody
get
has
going.
to hit the piper once in a while, right?
Exactly. I think I'm thinking of you go out to past Hawthorne, Tonopah area out there. If you turn east from Tonopah, and I'm gonna forget the name of that road, I apologize. I believe there's a hot springs that's in a bathtub right there along the road, not too far out of town. I'm not actually talking about that. My friend told me there's a place out there called Devil's Pool or something like that. You go out a dirt road and it's just like this big hole in the ground that has this big blue, beautiful body of water. Do you know what I'm talking about out there?
Yeah, so that's part of the Ash Meadows National Wildlife Refuge, which is down closer to like Pahrump and Beatty.
Pahrump, that's what. Okay, I'm off on the location. Yeah,
Yep,
I
yep.
haven't been out there yet, but I hear it's pretty cool.
Oh my gosh, so that's Nevada's piece of Death Valley. So there's 300 color photos in my book, by the way.
Wow.
So there's a lot. Hopefully, if the words won't inspire you, the pictures will.
The pictures
But
will, absolutely.
but yeah, it's incredible. It's the site of the first ever recorded endangered species, which was the Devil's Hole desert pupfish.
There you go,
And
pupfish.
interestingly, they live in these like amazing bright blue pools of water, and people can't go in them anymore. But it was a spiritual place for the Shoshone,
Yeah.
the Tigrisha, and so now it's Nevada's one piece of Death Valley National Park, and people don't know that. They just go straight into the park, and it's this, I mean, unreal, like a true desert mirage. And the fish, they're so tiny and they live on top of this like little opening of the pool of water. And then it goes way deep down in there in all these different chasms. And they think it might be connected to other parts of the world because there were earthquakes in Mexico and it created like a tsunami sort of effect in there. And I don't know,
Uh-huh.
it's interesting to me that the fish live right on the surface, but it's like this unknown depth of a
See,
cavern.
you hear these little mysteries. I heard that those fish could actually sometimes will go down and then come up in Death Valley inside of Salt Springs.
Oh, I mean,
That
I don't.
they actually have a channel that they think they actually travel between.
Well, there's the Amargosa River, which is like one of the largest underground rivers in the world, which the
Okay,
headwaters are in Beatty and it flows under there. And so it's possible. The way that I
that's
understand
interesting.
it, there's a bunch
Yeah,
of different types of pupfish and they all live in separate pools. And then as water levels, rescinded, they all kind of evolved slightly differently.
sure.
Um,
Okay.
but
Maybe
yeah,
I completely wrong. Again, mysteries of Nevada. Sometimes you hear
yeah.
things, you're like, I have to do some research.
Well, so I've got my book, which is Finding Nevada Wild, and then I also have a blog that's called Legends of Lost Nevada, and I record
Okay.
that as a podcast. I just read the story if
Yeah,
people
yeah.
want to listen to it instead of reading it. And I did one about Ash Meadows, and there was this really neat, like, desert renegade named Jack Longstreet who basically befriended the Native Americans and also lived down there in Ash Meadows. And you can visit this amazing, National Wildlife Refuge. His cabin is still there. There's a LEED
Right.
certified, visitor center, no one around. I mean, it's like astonishing whenever you go there.
Right.
It's just this incredible landscape. So anyone that's going to go check out, head further south of the Sierra and, go down to Death Valley, it's worth making that little detour for
Definitely
sure.
worth making that trip. Absolutely. Sydney, you're gonna not believe this. I think we could talk for an hour, but we're already coming up on the end of our show here. I want to do real quick here, give you the opportunity to tell people where they can get the book at. Tell them about your blog, and then anything that we haven't discussed so far in the book that you think would be really cool for people to know, and maybe entice them to go look at this book.
Yeah, yeah. So the book Finding Nevada Wild, you can get it on my website, which is at findingnevadawild.com. So ordering from me directly keeps the most money in my pocket, but of course you
Yeah.
can order it from my publisher, which is Schiffer, on their website, or Amazon, Barnes and Noble. The book officially drops by the time this has come out. It will be officially out. So my website, Finding Nevada Wild. I'm also a silversmith, so I make a lot of turquoise Nevada jewelry
Oh, that's
from
cool.
Nevada, and that's available on my website as well. So
Oh, that's good to know. Okay, that was
yeah,
very, very
yeah. And
helpful.
one other thing to maybe think about the desert differently is the sounds. That's been another really fun chapter. Is people might know of the amazing darkness that's here, but
Hmm.
it's amazing when your eyes can't process what you're looking at, but something even more magic happens when your ears can't process what they're listening to,
Yeah.
and these like sort of aural AURAL illusions that you can hear out there. I mean, it might change your experience of the desert if you just listen to it a little differently too. So there's
Absolutely.
another
Yeah. Just
chapter on that in the book.
I challenge you. Even if you want to go to Death Valley, just drive out into the desert with your chair. Just sit down at 11 p.m. at night and sit there until 2 a.m. in the morning.
Yep. Yep.
You'll be amazed not only what you see in the stars, but what you hear with nothing else. You have to get off road. You can't be near highway traffic. You just need to get out in the dirt. I can do that right here in the Carson Valley, not 4 miles away from my house, and park. And it's amazing what you can hear. I love that you just brought that up because the audio part, I can't stand, walking on the trail, and forgive me if I offend anybody. When I'm going down the trail and I see somebody come with their earbuds going on and they're jamming, I'm going, you are not even listening to wilderness.
Or
It's
even
like,
worse with a speaker, so it's like
oh,
impacting
yeah,
everyone else's time too. It's like,
you're not even allowed in wilderness with a speaker in my world.
but there's some cool stuff here, like caves. There's all kinds of amazing glacial cirques, all
Yeah,
different types of unique wildlife. I mean, there's just just stop and pay attention to what's around you. Unfortunately, Nevada is remote enough a place where you could do that. You could really listen. So
Yeah, we didn't even talk about my favorite thing, the wild horses, which is just, Nevada and wild horses to me, it's like that's as American as it gets. I
yeah,
just leave them
yeah.
alone, please. But very good. Let me do this. I got to do I need to run a quick sponsor thing for the Carson Valley here, our sponsor for the show. Anybody who's listened to the show for a while, you know that we're going to come up with our 3 questions here for Sydney next. But let me thank you, the Carson Valley, for being our sponsor and promoter of this show. They are fans of ours. We love Carson Valley here. And that scene right there of John driving his Jeep up in the desert, that's what we're talking about, man. By yourself, out just discovering stuff. He happens to manage the wild horse herd here locally, or at least it helps with that. So,
Yeah, and
Sydney,
some of his
that was such
pictures
a
are
fun show. What'd you say?
of his pictures are in the book too.
Oh, that's great. Very
Yeah.
good. We're gonna have to maybe have you back on the show again a little bit later. We'll pick up with this conversation, but we end our show with 3 questions for all of our guests. They're kind of fun questions. They want to get to know you just a little bit. Okay, so let's pretend that your bag is packed behind you, and you're gonna go play anywhere in Nevada or the Sierra. We're gonna do Sierra is what we usually do. Get to play for the weekend. Where are you going and why?
In Nevada,
I'll let
included.
you pick Nevada since you're a Nevada specialist.
I think that, to be fair, how about we meet in the middle? I would pick the
Okay.
Owens Valley. That is such an amazing place.
Oh,
Benton
Owen
Hot
Valley's cool.
Springs is our honorary Nevada location. I think it's like 6 miles over the border, and we've had a lot of fun in the White Mountains there, in the Owens
Yeah,
Valley, and Benton Hot Springs. So it's got like the trifecta: dark skies, tall mountain peaks, hot springs. Makes me
I love
happy.
it. I love it. Yeah, that Owens Valley, that's a special place, and there's some really cool history in the Owens Valley and connections with the Sierra too. Just how the whole thing, you know, the chase to Whitney, the whole thing is all based right out of that. So,
Yeah.
kind of a cool story. So very cool. Well, I'm a big kind of I shouldn't say I'm a foodie, but after a big adventure, I like hamburgers and cheeseburgers, right? So after you get a day out shooting photos in Nevada, or you guys are off road, what's the go-to meal for you guys?
Man, well, we're always trying to think of a local business, seriously, that we're closest to, and most times there's like one restaurant in each of the towns.
Yeah,
But what always sounds good to us is a pecan punch, which is that Basque drink, which also
there you
just became
go.
the official state drink of Nevada. And I think for me, I always want some kind of Italian. I think my husband would say a steak, but usually those little cafes, they can make it
You
all
like
out.
those? I like that. The pecan punch. No one's ever said that in the show. That's a shout out to the Basque culture here. That's pretty cool. All right. And finally, everyone is a gearhead in some way. So when you go out and you're heading out for an adventure, what piece of gear do you never leave home without?
Man, I think for me especially, it's a beach towel
Oh, very
because
good.
we are always getting in hot water or fishing, or it's like we gotta wipe our dog, clean our dog off before he gets back in
Yeah.
the truck. So I think we've always got a beach towel rolling around somewhere in the truck. So
I like it. I like it. Very, very. That's perfect. That's perfect. Well, we wish you the best in your book launching here. We're recording this. You don't know here at the end of September. Books launches. I think this week, right? This coming up
yep,
week,
September
and
28th.
you're
Yep.
you're getting the show here. 2 weeks in October. So check the book out. Go to that site. It's findingnevadawild.com. Get that right. Sydney Martinez. You also find her on Amazon, all places. But again, help her out by going to her own site. We've got a sneak preview of the book. It looks like a great book. We'll be picking up ourselves. And just a great opportunity to remember when you go out to experience culture, to look and listen and see things that you don't normally see. That's what this is all about. And Nevada's got hidden secrets all over the place. We couldn't cover a tenth of them here today. Sydney's done all the work for you, although she didn't give you all the locations. That's because Nevada people would come after her if we did that. But you can find them. They are findable. You just got to do a little research. Sydney, thank you so much for being a guest on our show and letting us tell part of your story. And we wish you the best moving forward with your books.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. This has been a blast.
Absolutely. And wherever you're at today, listening to Sierra Rick Podcast, we thank you. Thank you for coming along, being part of the story. We'd love to tell your story as well. You guys hear a story to share? Put it down below the comments. Get a hold of us. We'd love to kind of know what businesses you like, what places you like to explore. And we'll be bringing you another episode next week. We look forward to seeing you then. Have a great day.